All right, now it's time for In the Mix with Politics, brought to you by politics.topic.com. We're not on the right side, we're not on the left side, we're on your side. Your news and information for this week with your host, David Mark, Editor-in-Chief of Politics, and me, Will Roberts. I'm just a humorist tagging along to put my spin on things. By the way, our disclaimer. None of the humor necessarily reflects the views of my friends at politics.topic.com. All right, David, what's the scoop?
The big story this week, especially the last couple days of the week, has been the revelation that the National Security Agency has been taking phone records of Americans and processing them for various purposes. Some would call it spying. This is a big concern that a lot of civil libertarians have had for years. It's basically what the Bush administration was doing. He got a lot of gruff, a lot of heat over that from the left. Now they're turning on President Obama, and it's really striking to see the president coming in for criticism from his own party, his own coalition.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to tell you that it's the NSA, and I kind of renamed them. NSA stands for Nobody's Safe Anymore. Okay, so now let's look at the week in review on politics.topics.com. That's politix.topics.com. All right, so the first story is Eric Holder says he has no intention of stepping down. I think, well, maybe he should step down after he's kind of cleaned off what he's stepped in. What do you think?
Yeah, he has stepped in an awful lot. But Eric Holder, he is beleaguered. He's been so often criticized by Republicans in Congress, but he kind of has the leverage here. He can leave whenever he wants to, even though the Obama administration has sort of been leaking information about him, suggesting they might want him to step aside. There was a New York Times article in which there were anonymously quoted administration officials saying that Eric Holder should leave. It would be better in the administration's interest. But It's not like Obama's going to fire him, so he can wait it out, and he can kind of have the last laugh here against congressional Republicans.
Okay, next story. Obama and Chris Christie, share a bromance, and that's the complaint of a gentleman by the name of Louis, I can't say it, Gerard, and he is, well, to me, I always want to say something. This confirms to me that the reason why the Republicans and Democrats can't reach a thing on the immigration reform, because for some time they were doing bipartisan work there. I think it's because maybe the Republicans are scared of the word "bi" in there. What's your take?
Yeah, I hadn't quite thought of it that way, but this is Louis Gohmert, a Republican congressman from Texas, among the most conservative and outspoken House members. He has warned against such issues as Sharia law in the U.S., and quote-unquote anchor babies, illegal immigrants coming to the U.S. specifically to have babies and then they could become terrorists. Basically, he spouts off a lot of conspiracy theories, and he's not really a highly respected member of Congress and the general public, but here he is criticizing New Jersey Governor Chris Christie's political relationship with President Obama, particularly the bipartisan work together after Hurricane Sandy right before the elections last year. So clearly it's making a lot of Republicans upset.
Okay, the next story. Jon Stewart, of course, of The Daily Show, finds out that China won the Iraq war and gets all the oil. All I want to say is that if you want to divert anything attention away from China, just buy unleaded. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a good strategy, but it does get to a larger point about the Iraq War 10 years ago now, and what the U.S. got out of it, besides a lot of death and disruption and stirring up Iran on its eastern border. There's not even some tangible financial benefit. Oil revenues now are not really going to the U.S., they're going to places like China, which is very, very much not a U.S. ally, even though the leaders have been meeting of late.
All right, next story. House votes to limit ammunition stockpile by Homeland Security Department. I just want to say one thing. I think they've already taken care of this in this administration. It's called a drone strike. What do you think?
Could be. You may not see it coming, but this is one of those issues, and I think it's a solution in search of a problem. This was a vote as part of the annual spending bill appropriations bill for the Department of Homeland Security. This was an amendment offered by a Republican congressman from North Carolina, which basically would prohibit the Department of Homeland Security from stockpiling more than a couple of years' ammunition. And there's kind of a conspiracy theory undercurrent to this, that the DHS is going to turn its guns against American citizens or something of that nature. It's also in contrast to a lot of ammunition and gun shops which are having trouble stockpiling ammunition. So the thinking is the government is taking it instead. This still has a long way to go before becoming law, but it kind of shows you where a lot of Republicans are at this point in terms of gun rights issues.
All right, David Mark, Editor-in-Chief of Politics. That's POLITIX.TOPIX.com. And I'm Will Roberts. We'll see you next week.